Okay, so cool. Welcome to the weekly reflection session, and today we'll actually try something new and refresh the format. I will talk about key ideas I stumbled upon this week and provide some implication I made from these encounters. As this review shouldn't supposedly take more than an hour in production, some details will be omitted. But first, I of course have to acknowledge that I did nothing from what I stated recently. Even some of the habits are not so concrete as usual, but I don't care since they perpetually return on the next day. Now let's get to the meat. This week, I once again struggled to hit the office consistently, and I feel very bad for doing so, as my perceived productivity seems to dramatically decrease once I didn't force myself to go to office. During the days I were working from home, I contemplated about the internals of decision making and overall psyche, and I came up with a pretty neat model that I wanted to share now. We all know that humans are in possession of some mysterious thing called psyche, and my first insight was about the fact that psyche is just a calculation machine, just a calculator basically that lives inside all of us. If we take into account the fact that we are surrounded with streams and fields of information, the psyche is just a way for our organisms to process it. For instance, YouTube might be a source of information, or maybe the tactile feeling of your keyboard, or even the smell of your favorite breakfast. Basically, anything that you can feel is some sort of data from which your brain extracts information. My second insight was about the parts of our psyche. The idea here is that there are actually three intrinsic parts in any of us, but of course, one important mention is that these are not localized parts of the brain, so you cannot just take a part of the brain and say the part lives there. My definitions, therefore, are just schematics representation of them, and now I will try to describe this as best as possible. The first part is subconscious, which is capable of processing large amounts of information with high effectiveness. But the catch here is that the complexity of such processing is very heuristic and not very rational. Additionally, you cannot control the system, or I should rather say it controls you, as it's always working, no matter what. You can't stop working, and this constant stream of thoughts, which scientists called default mode, is actually the working of this subconscious system. Second is our conscious, which I like to imagine as a monkey brain. It has better analytical abilities, and you can even feel how it works. The monkey is responsible for short-term memory and for the focus, and basically the whole attention process is closely tied up to the monkey. One important notion here is that monkey consumes a lot of power and usually very lazy. Third, your personality, and I like to think about it as a vector of genetically determined settings that every one of us have. Your personality is what was given to you by evolution as best as possible, as a best possible set of goals given your environment. So it's basically your default settings and the goals you should strive towards. It's what you do the best, and just a vector of goals basically. And based on such understanding, I came to two powerful conclusions. First, intelligence alone won't get you anything because it only accounts for a tiny fraction of overall psyche calculation abilities. And second, if you don't want to calculate others' information, because as I've stated previously, your lizard brain or your subconscious is always processing information. So instead of processing others' information, you'd better find your personality fast to process information that is relevant to your environment and is better suited for you. Now let's talk about the actions of taking, and basically the question here was how you should find your personality. And again, from someone what I understood during this week, you have to gather information by performing some actions, of course, on a daily basis. No actions means no personality discovery. That's the only way, I think. Finally, based on this, I decided that I will try to go to office at least 4 days a week while there are classes in the university, and we'll check how it'll go in the next episode. Now let's move to the second insight, which is about my strategic shift towards Linux. And for better understanding, I should say that once I've seen the Unix porn subreddit, there is no way I will remain on Windows. So that's basically an emotional reason why I've been trying to migrate to Linux for the past couple of years. And all the reasons why I do this basically stems from this understanding. And during this week, I finally understood that I won't be able to move towards Linux if I won't do some necessary preparations. It should be obvious that before the move, you have to ensure that the productivity hit you'll get will at least be manageable. Otherwise, and I say this because I've been there, you'll just spend time fixing your config, tinkering with it, and then reinstalling Windows back, as you have to get things done basically. That being said, I realized that one important step before moving to Linux will be configuring my development environment, which will be NeoVim, of course. And when I at least be able to do my work in NeoVim, I will consider moving to Linux. So that's just another kind of resolve of the steps I should take in order to switch to Linux finally. And to speed up this process, I've spent some time tinkering with NeoVim yesterday and during the week basically. And again, I fully committed myself to learning Vim motions while I'm still bounded to development environment like Visual Studio or Rider. And this week, while I was kind of exploring Vim motions, it basically happened for a couple of weeks, but this week it was especially a nice experience with motions, as something finally clicked inside of me and now they feel at least usable. That's a nice sign, I guess. And to conclude, I should of course mention the fact that I've traditionally restricted YouTube on mobile, and I also restricted the recommendations and the previews on in the browser version of the site. And this is an important fact because after so many years, I finally played a new game, which is Starfield, before actually watching the reviews. So this restriction of YouTube actually allowed me to play Starfield without learning somebody else's opinion. And it feels just so refreshing, to be honest, because sure, the game is mid at best, but the fact that I've concluded this by myself is basically what gives me excitement. So it's hard to imagine, but for the past, I guess, 10 or 7 to 10 years, I was first watching the reviews and then playing the game. And basically the cycle was that I watched the review, the blogger said that it was a very nice game, I purchased it, but because of the fact I've already watched the reviews and I've already for my brain it seemed like I get the most out of the game, I simply didn't play it. So now I've played for almost 8 hours and I will continue playing today after I finish recording this session. And basically that's it. Thanks for listening and see you next week. Bye bye.